Hello and welcome! In today's episode I am once again coming back to my beloved Volcas, and I plan to do a tutorial video on how I do to record the Volcas. And for this purpose I have selected the 3 original Volcas. So this is the Volca keys, we have the Volca bass and the Volca beats. So these 3 were released as the original Volcas. They were released in 2013, which means they're actually now vintage gear. Wow! And I will also be using the Korg NTS-1 for some effects. Actually, I did another video like 1 or 2 years ago on how to record the Volcas, but I think it's time I did another one because I've learned some more stuff now, and I also think I have become a bit better at making these tutorial videos. And to record the Volcas we will also be using this good old mixer. It's an analog mixer, it's a Behringer MX1602A Eurorack. It is not around anymore, it's a very old product. I think I've had it for over 20 years, but it still does the trick. But one thing you should think about is of course that you have enough channels, so you can record as many Volcas as you want. It is also really important that you can send effects, or if you have some built-in effects, because typically you do want to add some delay and reverb on the individual channels. And then of course it's really important to have an equalizer, so you can EQ the different channels when recording. And then for my analog to digital conversion, or as you might also call it, sound card, I'm using this M-Audio Keystudio 49i. Also a very old product. I think I have not had it for 20 years, but maybe for 10. But still it does the job. And finally I have a laptop, and then I can record the sounds. And as some of you have already noticed, I'm using a software called GoldWave. Also very old software. I'm beginning to see a pattern here, all my stuff is really old. But GoldWave are still releasing new patches, and I'm keeping the product up to date, and I think it works fine, it does the job very well. And that's all the equipment I'm gonna use when recording the Volcas. Now, the first step in the recording process is that I need to connect the Volcas to the mixer. And here's the first thing you need to think about that I sometimes hear that people do as a mistake when they connect the Volcas. So the audio output from the Volcas is actually the headphone socket. And what I need to connect in here is a 3.5mm stereo. A mistake that people sometimes do is use a cable like this, what I call like a tele cable. And the thing is, this one, it only has one black ring here, you see. The stereo cable, it should have 2 rings. So this cable that only has 1 ring, this is a mono cable, and this is typically used, for example, when connecting an electric guitar. But if you then try to use like an adapter and maybe adapter like this, you see this one is stereo and this one is mono, and then if you use this and try to connect it to the Volca, it will not sound very great. Instead I typically use a cable like this. So you see here it's a 3.5mm stereo in one end, and in the other end I have these 2 RCAs, which is for left and right channel. I then just add adapters to this one, and then I can safely connect it to my mixer. And then I connect the other end to my Volca. And now this will work fine. And next I'm gonna need power. I typically do not run my Volcas on batteries. Instead I have bought a couple of these adapters. This is the kind of adapter that just it comes with like different options like this, so you can choose which one you want. So just find the one that suits the Volca. Then if you look at the Volca, you see on the 9V DC in here that there's a little symbol here, and you can see that the minus is on the outside and the plus is in the middle. So this means you need to apply this one. So plus is in the middle and minus is on the outside. If it doesn't work, you simply turn this 180 degrees and connect it again. Then it will probably work. Then also it says here it wants 9V DC. So in my adapter here I can just turn a little knob to change the voltage. So you want to set this to 9V. Then we're good to go. So let's connect these now. Okay, so now I have connected all my Volcas to the mixer, and I have also given them power. So now I can turn them on. But there's one thing more I need to do. I need to sync them, basically, so they will play in sync. For that, you use these tiny cables that you get when you buy the Volca. So I have a couple of these now. But you can use actually any cable that has like these 3.5 millimeter connections. And you have to choose one Volca as the master. I typically choose the drum machine. The thing is, you should choose the Volca that you use the most, and preferably during a jam, you never stop the master sync Volca, because then you will lose sync in the jam. So usually the sync Volca, which I'm now gonna have the Volca Beats as sync Volca, I'm never gonna stop it during the jam. Instead, I can create a pattern in a memory slot which is blank if I want the drums to be silent, because I typically do not want to stop it, because then I lose sync. So now let's just connect these sync cables. So I take sync out from Volca Beats into sync in of the Volca keys, and then another tiny cable from sync out of the Volca keys into the sync in of the Volca bass. It's also good if you try to get the cables to be not in your way when you jam. Okay, so now it's all connected. Now we're gonna look at the mixer settings. So when recording a Volca jam, it's quite important to set the levels of the individual instruments. And then after I've done my recording, I can do some mastering and post-processing of my audio. But if I get the levels wrong, it's kind of hard to fix that. I will start to set the levels of the Volca beats. And what I've done now is I just pre-created some cool acid patterns here. So I plan to record a cool acid track here. I start by playing the Volca beats, and it's connecting on this channel. And as you hear now, the Volca beats actually has a quite low output level. And this is also important. When you record the Volcas, always put the volume on max. Because I don't know if you can hear it now, but there is some noise sometimes from the Volcas, and the noise doesn't get lower if you turn down the volume. It's the same. So that's why you want to max out the volume, because then your sound you want will be much higher than the noise. So crank the volume here, and also the output volume is a bit low on the Volca beats. So I'm also going to use the gain here to boost it a bit more. And then be also a bit careful with the sub bass, because it's better to record with less sub bass. It's quite easy to increase the sub bass later in the post-processing. But if you have too much sub bass, you can quite easily get distortion. Listen here, I can demonstrate. And if I increase the sub bass, you quite immediately get a distortion. And that's quite hard to get rid of later. And then we have the Volca bass. And here I'm instead going to use the gain to reduce the volume a bit, because I want to max out the volume here, remember? But then I can turn down the gain a bit. And then check the levels. That is quite balanced. And then for the Volca keys. Same here, I reduced the gain a bit. Yes, that sounds pretty good. But another thing here, so you don't want too much sub bass conflicting. So in this case, I think I want most of the sub bass from my Volca beats. I don't want so much sub bass from the Volca bass. I'm going to reduce the bass a bit here on my equalizer. And I'm going to reduce the bass also a bit on the Volca keys, but not as much. I don't want too much sub bass in the initial recording, then I can always boost the sub frequencies later. Cool, then another thing I want now is if I want to have individual effects on the sound. For example, I think the Volca bass would benefit from a little delay and a little reverb. So I'm going to add that now using the FX send to my Korg NTS-1. Okay, cool. So now I've connected my NTS-1 on the FX send and FX return of my mixer. And I'm going to apply now some delay and reverb to the Volca bass. Okay, just adjust the time a bit here. And I think I'll add a reverb as well. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. I think I'll add some FX also to the Volca keys. Yeah, and then before I'm done, I always give it one extra listen using some really good headphones, because it's always good to do a final sound check with some good headphones, because you might have missed some low frequencies or some high frequencies or some noise that you're really bothered by. So give it a good listen before you start recording and check the levels one extra time, because you cannot change them after you have recorded. So use some good headphones first. Okay, so now the jam is done, and I think it sounds already pretty badass. But just to make it even better, I usually do a bit of post-processing afterwards, or you can call it mastering. So I do it in a software called propellerhead. I don't know if that is the best software. I have just been using it for a very long time. I think I've been using it since version 2, and now I'm using the current version, which is version 12. But I'm gonna use this software now and do a bit of mastering to make it sound even better. And I am now going to show you how I do it. So what I want to do now is I add 2 sampler tracks. And I will now load my audio file that I recorded from the jam. I'm loading it on both units, same file. So now it's loaded on both tracks. I'm gonna call this sub. Now I'm gonna call this mid. Actually, I think I'm gonna add a third sampler. Let's add a third sampler track. There we go. And I'm gonna load yet again the jam track. Cool. Now I have it on all 3 tracks. Here I can save some time by just copying this. And I'm gonna call this high. So I'm gonna start with the sub, and what I'm gonna do here is I'm gonna add some FX here. Here I will create a low cut filter. There we go, filter, and I'm gonna isolate only the low frequencies. So now I'm gonna have only the low frequencies here. And what I wanna do is then I'm gonna run that through a compressor. I'm gonna create a M-class compressor. And I'm gonna crunch the bass so I get an even level for my sub sounds. And then I'm gonna listen at the mid. Use the equalizer to remove the sub frequencies. And then the final is the high frequencies. So here I will remove both the low frequencies and the mid frequencies. So I'm left with only the high frequencies. And on the high frequencies, I'm gonna add some effects. I'm gonna add especially some reverb here. So I will activate some reverb. I think I will add a chorus effect as well. So I'm adding that here. And finally, I'm just gonna add a compressor on everything, the master compression. And then I think we're quite done. Just gonna adjust the levels a bit, and then let's listen to the final result. Okay, that was it for this time. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial, and remember to click that subscribe button so you don't miss the next episode. And until next time, ta-da!